At the Grand Meridian Gala, Astrid spots Clinton the ex, who shattered her cutting through the crowd with that practiced smile. Panic spikes. She catches the sleeve of a tall stranger and whispers, "Could you dance with me?" My ex is watching. His hand is steady, his blue eyes give nothing away as he spins her into the light. Her breath steadies, the room blurs until Monday's meeting announces him as Silas Whitaker, billionaire CEO of Whitaker Industries. And Astrid realizes her rescuer is secretly her boss tonight. The chandelier above the Grand Meridian ballroom cast fractured light across marble floors, polished to a mirror shine. Astrid Reynolds stood near the champagne fountain, fingers wrapped around a flute she had not yet touched, running through the grounding technique her therapist had taught her. 5 crystal lights overhead, 4 notes from the string quartet warming up, 3 distinct perfumes in the air rose, sandalwood, something citrus, 2 heartbeats she could feel in her throat. 1 breath, held too long. She had come alone tonight, representing Whitaker Industries at this charity gala in her new role as head of marketing. 3 weeks into the job and already she was learning the unspoken rules: show up early, stay visible, network with intention. The room hummed with old money and careful ambition. Banners bearing the name Whitaker Industries hung near the sponsor tables, gilt lettering catching the light. Then she saw him. Clinton Maddox moved through the crowd the way he always had, smile easy, posture relaxed, the kind of man who believed every room owed him attention. He wore a navy suit that fit too well, and beside him walked a woman Astrid did not recognize. Clinton leaned close to whisper something that made the woman laugh, and Astrid felt the old wound open, not fresh pain, but the memory of it, sharp enough to matter. "You're good, Astrid, just not enough." That had been his final assessment, delivered in a coffee shop 2 years ago, his tone so casual it had taken her 3 days to realize she was allowed to be angry. He had made her believe the problem was hers to fix, that she needed to be smaller, quieter, more convenient. And she had tried. God, she had tried. Now Clinton's gaze swept the room and landed on her. Recognition flickered across his face. He said something to his companion, gesturing with his champagne glass, and Astrid knew he was about to approach. The air in her lungs felt borrowed, the floor felt too far away. She turned and found herself face to face with a man she did not know. Tall, perhaps 6'2", with dark hair and eyes the color of a winter sky just before snow. He wore a charcoal suit with no tie, the top button of his shirt undone, and he stood with the kind of stillness that suggested he did not need to prove anything to anyone. Astrid did not think. She reached out and caught the sleeve of his jacket. "Could you dance with me?" Her voice came out lower than she intended, urgent but controlled. "My ex is watching." The man's gaze shifted past her shoulder, found Clinton, assessed the situation in less than 2 seconds. When he looked back at Astrid, something in his expression softened, not pity, but recognition. He had been on some battlefield of his own. "Clockwise or counter?" he asked, voice calm as deep water. "Counter," Astrid said, surprising herself. He took her hand. His palm was warm, steady, calloused in a way that suggested he worked with his hands for reasons that had nothing to do with necessity. He led her onto the floor just as the quartet shifted into a Viennese waltz, and Astrid felt the world narrow to the space between her breath and his. "My ex is watching," she said again, quieter now. "Then let him watch you lead," the man replied. They moved in perfect counterpoint, her uncertainty dissolving into the rhythm. He did not hold her too close. He did not ask questions. He simply gave her space to remember that she knew how to stand upright, how to move through the world without collapsing under the weight of someone else's dismissal. Astrid's breathing evened out. She counted the steps 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and let the mathematics calm her. Across the room, Clinton stood frozen, champagne glass halfway to his lips, watching. But for the first time in 2 years, Astrid did not care. She was dancing, and she was enough. The music swelled and ended. The man released her hand with the same care he had taken it. "Thank you," Astrid said. "You did the work," he replied. Then he stepped back, nodded once, and disappeared into the crowd before she could ask his name. Behind her, the event coordinator took the microphone to thank the sponsors. "We are deeply grateful to Whitaker Industries for their continued generosity, and to the Whitaker Family Foundation for making tonight possible." Astrid barely heard it. She was still catching her breath, still feeling the ghost of that steadying hand, still marveling at the fact that she had asked a stranger for help, and he had given it without taking anything in return. Monday morning arrived cold and bright, the kind of autumn day that made Manhattan look like a steel engraving. Astrid stepped off the elevator onto the 54th floor of Whitaker Industries, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city in sharp relief. The office smelled like espresso and ambition. Assistants moved with purpose. Somewhere a phone rang twice and went silent. Vanessa Briggs met her at the glass doors to the conference room, arms full of presentation binders. Vanessa had been Astrid's first friend at Whitaker, sharp, warm, quick to laugh, and utterly uninterested in corporate games. "Big day," Vanessa said, handing Astrid the materials. "The board's here, Adelaide's circling like a shark. And rumor has it the CEO himself is sitting in." Astrid's stomach tightened. She had not yet met Silas Whitaker in person. He had been traveling when she was hired, and their only interaction had been a brief email welcoming her to the team. All she knew was that he was 38, had taken over the company from his father 6 years ago, and ran it with a reputation for being fair but exacting. The conference room was all steel and glass, a long table that could seat 20. Adelaide Kerrigan sat near the head, acting chief marketing officer, 11 months into a role she clearly intended to keep. Adelaide was 52, silver-haired, and smiled the way people did when they were calculating odds. "Astrid," Adelaide said, voice smooth. "Ready to impress?" Before Astrid could answer, the door opened and a man walked in. Tall, dark hair, blue eyes, charcoal suit. The stranger from the gala. Astrid's breath caught. Vanessa glanced at her, eyebrows raised in silent question, but Astrid could not move, could not speak. The man Silas Whitaker, her mind supplied, catching up too late, took his seat at the head of the table and scanned the room with the same calm assessment he had used on the dance floor. "Good morning," Silas said. His gaze landed on Astrid for half a second longer than necessary. A flicker of recognition quickly shuddered. "Let's begin." The meeting unfolded in careful layers. Henry Carver, the board representative, asked pointed questions about fourth-quarter strategy. Adelaide presented her plan for brand expansion, polished and safe. Then Silas turned to Astrid. "Miss Reynolds, you proposed an authentic storytelling framework in your onboarding materials. Walk us through it." Astrid stood, grateful her hands did not shake. She had spent 3 weeks refining this pitch, and she believed in it, believed that brands won trust not through polish, but through verifiable honesty. "Authentic storytelling is not about being perfect," she began. "It's about being accountable. Consumers today can detect spin in under 10 seconds. What they are hungry for is truth that has been tested and proven. We build that trust through third-party validation, transparent policies, and a willingness to publicly acknowledge when we fall short." She clicked through her slides: brand trust lift metrics, net promoter score benchmarks, earned media share projections, organic search lift targets. Every number backed by case studies from companies that had chosen honesty over image management. Silas leaned back in his chair. "How do we operationalize authenticity in a corporation this size? We are not a startup. We have legacy systems, entrenched processes, shareholders who expect consistency." Astrid met his gaze. "We create a truth-first policy. Independent audits of our supply chain, published quarterly. A public mechanism for reporting discrepancies, with transparent follow-up. And we lead with stories from people on the ground, our workers, our partners, not just executive statements." Silence stretched. Henry Carver tapped his pen against the table. Adelaide's smile thinned. Then Silas nodded. "I want a one-on-one at 3 this afternoon. Bring your implementation roadmap." The meeting ended. Vanessa gave Astrid a quick thumbs up as they filed out. Astrid's heart was still pounding, but not from fear this time, from the challenge. From the fact that the man who had danced with her without asking for anything had just handed her a chance to prove herself on her own terms. At 3 o'clock sharp, Astrid knocked on the door to Silas Whitaker's office. It opened onto a space far more restrained than she had expected: minimalist desk, 2 chairs, a wall of windows overlooking the city. The only personal touch was a framed document on the wall. The bylaws of the Whitaker Family Foundation, calligraphy precise, signatures in faded ink. Silas gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Close the door." Astrid did, then sat, her folder of roadmaps balanced on her knees. Silas folded his hands. "Saturday night, the gala. I did not introduce myself because I was not there as the CEO. I use my middle name at events like that. Whitaker draws a certain kind of attention I do not always want. I went to listen, not to be heard. I appreciate you helping me, Astrid said carefully. You helped yourself. I just followed your lead. He paused. That said, I want to establish boundaries. I do not want what happened Saturday to complicate your work here. You have a strong strategic mind, and I intend to give you the space to use it. But I also want to be clear. I value professionalism. Anything outside that scope stays outside. Astrid felt relief wash through her, clean and simple. I want the same thing. I am here to do my job well. Nothing more. Silas nodded. Good. Then let's talk implementation. They spent the next 90 minutes mapping timelines. Daily check-ins, 20 minutes. 2-week sprints for campaign development. A phased rollout European Union markets first, where transparency regulations were already stringent, then APAC 12 weeks later. KPIs reviewed quarterly. Silas asked hard questions, and Astrid answered them without flinching. By the time she left his office, the sun was setting over the Hudson, painting the glass towers gold. Astrid walked back to her desk, feeling something she had not felt in years: certainty. She knew what she was doing. She knew it was right. And she knew the man who had danced with her understood the difference between rescue and respect. By Tuesday afternoon, the rumors had started. Whispers in the hallway. Sidelong glances in the break room. Astrid heard fragments as she refilled her coffee, danced with the CEO, special treatment, fast track, and felt the old anxiety creep back in. She had done nothing wrong. But perception, she was learning, had its own gravity. Adelaide found her by the elevators, smile sharp as cut glass. Astrid, a word. They stepped into an empty conference room. Adelaide closed the door and leaned against the table, arms crossed. I have been acting CMO for 11 months, Adelaide said. I have put in the hours, managed the crises, kept this department running while Silas chased his vision. And now you show up, 3 weeks in, and suddenly you have private meetings and direct access. I presented a framework he asked me to develop, Astrid replied evenly. Adelaide's smile did not reach her eyes. Some people earn their way up, others dance into it. The words landed like a slap, but Astrid kept her voice level. If you have concerns about my work, put them in writing. I will address them. Adelaide pushed off the table. Just remember, this company has rules, and people who try to skip the line do not last. She left. Astrid stood alone in the glass room, hands shaking now that no one could see. Vanessa found her 10 minutes later. Heard Adelaide cornered you. She thinks I am using Saturday to get ahead. Vanessa snorted. Adelaide has been counting down the days until her 12-month mark. Did you know there is a clause in the foundation bylaws? If the acting CMO stays in role for 12 months, they get temporary voting power on foundation decisions, 30% weight. It is a legacy rule from when Silas's father wanted to protect long-term hires. Adelaide has 29 days left. She is terrified you are going to disrupt her timeline. Astrid stared. That is why she is hostile. That, Vanessa said, and she knows you are better at the job. Across the building, in a windowed office overlooking the city, Silas sat across from Henry Carver, the board's longest-serving member. Henry was 67, gray-haired, cautious in the way of men who had survived 3 recessions. The board is asking about the CMO decision, Henry said. Adelaide has been solid, steady. She has earned consideration. She has, Silas agreed. But I am not making appointments based on tenure. I am making them based on vision. Henry tapped the table. Be careful. Adelaide has allies. And that foundation clause gives her leverage in 29 days. If she activates that voting power, she could block initiatives you care about. Silas said nothing, but his jaw tightened. He had inherited the foundation bylaws from his father, a well-meaning attempt to protect employees from corporate churn. But in practice, it had created a loophole, one that rewarded time over merit, and gave temporary power to people who might not use it wisely. I will handle it, Silas said finally. Henry studied him. Just make sure you are handling it legally. That Thursday night, Astrid received an unexpected email. Silas Whitaker, inviting her to a business dinner at the Pierre, a partner meeting with a media contact, and he wanted her strategic perspective. Astrid read it twice, looking for subtext, but the language was professional, clear, bounded by purpose. She wore a navy dress, simple and sharp, and met Silas in the lobby at 7. The Pierre was old New York elegance, marble, brass, waiters who moved like shadows. They were seated on the balcony, the city glittering below them, the autumn air cool but not cold. The media partner never showed. Silas received a text 20 minutes in sudden illness, apologies, reschedule next week. Astrid expected him to cancel the dinner, but he set his phone down and said, "We are here. We might as well eat." They talked about work campaign timelines, risk mitigation, the balance between boldness and caution. Somewhere in the second course, the conversation shifted. "You asked me to dance," Silas said. "That took courage." "Or desperation," Astrid replied. "Courage and desperation are not mutually exclusive." He paused. "Why was he watching you?" Astrid considered lying, then decided against it. "Because he told me I was not enough, and I believed him. I spent 2 years trying to be smaller so he would stay. When he left anyway, I realized the problem was never me." Silas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The best thing anyone ever told me was that I did not need to be the loudest person in the room to be heard. I just needed to be the clearest." Astrid smiled. "I am still learning that." They were interrupted by a voice from across the balcony. Silas Whitaker, Small World. Astrid turned and felt the air leave her lungs. Clinton Maddox stood there, hand extended, wearing a suit that cost too much and a smile that meant nothing. He shook Silas's hand, then turned to Astrid with exaggerated surprise. "Astrid, I did not know you knew Silas." "We worked together," Astrid said, voice flat. Clinton's smile widened. "Funny you should mention work. I have an interview next week, VP of Growth at Whitaker Industries. Looks like we will be colleagues again." The words hit like a physical blow. Astrid felt the room tilt. Silas's expression did not change, but his voice dropped 10 degrees. "That position was closed last quarter." Clinton blinked. "I received an email. Scheduling confirmation." "Then someone made a mistake," Silas said. "There is no open VP role. Good evening." Clinton hesitated, smile faltering, then nodded and walked away. Astrid sat frozen, hands clenched in her lap, trying to keep her breathing even. Silas waited until Clinton was out of earshot. "Did you know he applied?" "No." Her voice came out too tight. "I did not even know he was in New York."
"He is not on any approved candidate list. Someone bypassed protocol." Silas pulled out his phone and typed quickly, "I will find out who." But Astrid already knew. The timing, the precision. The way Adelaide had smiled when she said some people dance their way up. This was a move designed to destabilize, bring in the X, create gossip, make Astrid look like she was using personal connections for professional gain. "She set this up," Astrid said quietly. Silas looked at her. "Who?" "Adelaide." By Friday morning, Silas had confirmation. No HR ticket, no interview room booking, but there was an email thread forwarded from an external device, routed through a personal account, landing in Clinton's inbox with a fake scheduling link. The IT logs showed an unfamiliar IP address accessing internal candidate portals the same night Adelaide had stayed late in the office. Silas called Vanessa and Astrid into a secure conference room. "We cannot prove it definitively without a legal process," he said. "But the pattern is clear. Someone gave Clinton access he should not have had. The timing aligns with Adelaide's push to destabilize Astrid before her own 12-month mark." Vanessa leaned forward. "What are you going to do?" Silas was quiet for a long moment. "If I terminate Adelaide now, it looks like retaliation. If I wait 29 more days, she gets voting power that could block everything we are trying to build. I need leverage something clean, something she cannot deny." Astrid thought of Clinton's voice, smooth and entitled. She thought of the way he had looked at her at the Pierre, like she was still the woman who believed she was not enough. And then she thought of something her therapist had said. "You cannot control what people do, but you can control how you respond, and whether you let them use your silence. What if we give him a chance to tell the truth?" Astrid said slowly. Silas and Vanessa both looked at her. "Clinton thinks he has an interview. What if we let him believe that, on the record, in a compliance-monitored room? If he mentions Adelaide, if he names her as the referral source, that is not entrapment. That is him volunteering information in a documented setting. Vanessa's eyes widened. That is brilliant. Silas considered it. It has to be completely above board. Compliance present. Recording permissions posted. No coercion. Agreed, Astrid said. I will be the one to meet him. I will ask about his referral. And if he tells the truth, we will have everything we need. The room they chose was small, glass-walled, with a compliance officer seated just outside. A red light blinked above the door, recording in progress, as required by company policy. Clinton had confirmed the meeting himself, believing it to be a preliminary interview. Astrid sat across from him, hands folded on the table. Vanessa, in the adjacent room, with the compliance team monitoring every word. Clinton smiled. This is unexpected. I thought I would be meeting with HR. Change of plans, Astrid said. I wanted to talk first. Clear the air. His smile thinned. Not much to clear. We are adults. Are we? Astrid kept her voice even. Because 2 years ago, you told me I was not enough. You made me believe that, and now you show up at my workplace, bypassing every protocol. And I have to wonder, what are you actually here for? Clinton shifted in his chair. I applied for a job. That is all. Who referred you? He hesitated. A contact. A name. Clinton. He exhaled. Irritation flickering across his face. Adelaide Kerrigan. She said, you were making waves, and if I showed up at the right moment, it would create complications. She said after 1 more month, things would be different. She would have more influence. Astrid felt her pulse steady. So she asked you to destabilize me. She asked me to interview. What you made of it was your business, and you agreed. Because you still think I am not enough. Clinton leaned back. I think you are good, Astrid. Just not. Do not finish that sentence. Astrid stood. This interview is over. Compliance has everything they need. She walked out, leaving Clinton staring after her, confusion dawning too late. Vanessa met her in the hall, phone already in hand. Legal is reviewing the recording now. They will have a report by Monday. Monday morning, the boardroom was full. Silas at the head of the table. Henry Carver to his right. 3 other board members, stone-faced. Legal and compliance seated along the wall. And at the center, Adelaide Kerrigan, summoned without explanation. Clinton had been informed his interview was cancelled. He was not present. Silas began without preamble. We are here to address a breach of internal security protocols and ethical standards. Legal, please present your findings. The compliance officer stood, remote in hand, and clicked through the timeline. The external IP access, the forwarded email, the scheduling link sent from an unregistered device, and then the recording Clinton's voice, clear and uncoerced, naming Adelaide Kerrigan as the person who had orchestrated his appearance. She said after 1 more month, things would be different. The room went silent. Adelaide's face drained of color. This is entrapment. It is not, Legal replied. Mr. Maddox was informed he was being recorded. He was not coerced. He volunteered information in response to a direct question in a compliance-monitored setting. Everything was procedural. Henry Carver turned to Adelaide. Did you refer Clinton Maddox for a position that did not exist? Adelaide's jaw tightened. I thought he might be a good fit. There was no open position, Henry said. And you used personal channels to bypass HR. Why? Silence. Adelaide looked at Silas. Then, at the board. Calculating odds that no longer favored her. I wanted to protect this company from rushed decisions, she said finally. Astrid Reynolds has been here 3 weeks. She does not understand our culture. I thought bringing in someone with a different perspective would provide balance. By targeting her personally? Silas's voice was quiet, but it carried weight. By exploiting her past relationship to undermine her credibility? Adelaide said nothing. Silas stood. The board will vote on your termination. But before we do, I want to make something clear. This company was built on a principle my father believed, in that integrity is not optional. It is the foundation. And when someone violates that, they do not get to hide behind tenure or timing or clever interpretations of bylaws. He looked at each board member in turn. Adelaide Kerrigan violated security protocols, manipulated internal processes, and attempted to sabotage a colleague for personal gain. I move for immediate termination. Henry Carver nodded. Seconded. The vote was unanimous. Adelaide left the building that afternoon, escorted by security, her office packed into 3 cardboard boxes. Astrid watched from her desk, feeling not triumph but something quieter relief. The weight she had carried since Clinton's appearance at the Pierre was gone. Silas called her into his office an hour later. "Sit," he said. And Astrid did. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "You put yourself in a difficult position. That took courage. I did not want her to win by making me afraid." Astrid said. She did not win. Silas paused. The board voted this afternoon on another matter. You are now interim CMO. Effective immediately. 6-month term, with clear OKRs. If you hit them, the position is yours permanently. Astrid's breath caught. You earned it, Silas said. Not because of Saturday, not because of what happened with Clinton, but because your framework is sound, your instincts are sharp, and you do not flinch when things get hard. He handed her a folder. Inside was the roadmap they had built together, European rollout first. APAC 12 weeks later. Third-party validation partnerships. Independent audits. Community proof mechanisms. And at the top, in Silas's handwriting, truth. First marketing initiative. This is the policy we are adopting company-wide, Silas said. Transparency in our supply chain. Public accountability for errors. Real stories from real people. We are going to pay the cost of honesty, and we are going to do it loudly. Astrid looked up at him. This could hurt us short term. It will save us long term. He met her gaze. I am betting on the truth. And I am betting on you. That night, Astrid sat in her apartment with Vanessa, who had been promoted to Director of Brand Integrity, a new role designed to keep the Truth First policy accountable. You did it, Vanessa said, raising a glass of wine. We did it, Astrid corrected. Fine. We did it. But you were the one who walked into that room with Clinton and did not flinch. Astrid smiled. I flinched. I just did not let him see it. 6 months passed in a blur of work campaign launches, audit reports, media interviews where Silas and Astrid sat side by side and answered hard questions about supply chain gaps they were working to close. The metrics came in slowly, then all at once. Brand trust lift, up 12%. Net promoter score climbing. Earned media share, increasing as journalists took note of a corporation willing to admit mistakes. The board met in April and voted unanimously to make Astrid's role permanent. She was 34 years old and the chief marketing officer of a multi-billion-dollar company. And she had gotten there by refusing to be anyone other than herself. That same week, Silas announced the Whitaker Family Foundation's newest initiative, Women in Honest Leadership, a scholarship and mentorship program for women in business who had rebuilt their careers after setbacks. Vanessa ran the program. Astrid sat on the advisory board. The gala was held at the Grand Meridian again, 1 year to the day after Astrid had asked a stranger to dance. She stood near the same champagne fountain, wearing a green dress this time, watching the crowd with none of the anxiety she had carried before. Silas found her just as the quartet began to play. "Could you dance with me?" he asked, and the echo of that night made her smile. "This time," Astrid said, taking his hand. "Not because someone is watching." They stepped onto the floor as the waltz began faster than before, more confident. The kind of rhythm that came from knowing exactly where you stood. Astrid felt the weight of the years settle into something lighter. She had been enough all along. She had just needed the space to see it. Across the room, Clinton Maddox was nowhere to be found. Adelaide Kerrigan had taken a position at a smaller firm, her reputation tarnished, but not destroyed. The world kept turning, indifferent to those who tried to game it. But here, in this moment, Astrid danced because she wanted to, because the man holding her hand had never asked her to be smaller, because she had built something true, and it had held. The music swelled. Silas spun her once, twice, and when they came back together, his eyes were steady and clear. "You know," he said quietly, "I think we are done pretending this is just professional." Astrid smiled. "I think we earned the right to stop pretending." The song ended. The room applauded, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Astrid Reynolds felt like she was standing exactly where she belonged, not because someone had put her there, but because she had walked herself to that spot, step by deliberate step, and refused to be moved. She was enough. She had always been enough. And the world, at long last, had caught up.